right, the Dales Report, back here in Miami, Florida for the week for Wonderland, Miami, big Psychedelic Conference. And we're happy to be joined with the CEO of BetterLife Pharma, Ahmad Doroudian. How are you, sir?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Should we do this every day?
Yeah, this sounds good. This looks good. Different than Vancouver.
I know, huh? A little bit different than Canada, but it's nice to get face-to-face.
Yeah.
This has been the feedback all week long that we've been interviewing guests. It's just this is important, right? A lot of investors obviously watching closely as to how this industry is performing. There's some decent news this morning, obviously, with Cybin, but for the most part, we've got Compass Pathways that's announcing their endpoints coming up in a couple of weeks. But bring it to life for people that couldn't make this conference. What's your big takeaway here on day one and what you're hearing?
This is just the start of the whole drug development and research in this space. And I told the audience, I said, you are going to remember you were here.
Interesting.
In 5-10 years, this is going to be 20,000 people.
Interesting.
25,000, 30,000. And I truly believe that we're at the start of a new whole space of this for mental. And
that's interesting.
Yeah, and our group specifically, we have really zeroed in on a non-hallucinogenic approach.
I know. I want to talk about that. Your leading compound, which is TD-0148A.
Yeah.
So a lot of people at home are like, okay, what's that? So this is basically a compound that's non-hallucinogenic that has the same therapeutic effects as LSD.
Yeah.
So if I'm at home and I'm trying to understand what all this means, walk me through what it does mean, the importance of it all, and most importantly, I guess, why consumers and investors should care.
So this is 2-bromo-LSD, TD-0148A.
Okay.
It's 2-bromo-LSD. It's been around since LSD. It was invented by the same chemist, Albert Hofmann, but was in research for years and years. There was a lot of anecdotal evidence that it works, it helps with certain things, especially cluster headache. There was a paper in 2010, but realistically, there was nothing in terms of science that was generated. Why does it work, or what are the different mechanisms or mechanism of action, and so on. So that's what we've done. We spent the last 8-9 months, first of all, synthesizing it. Was a huge endeavor because we synthesized it completely non-scheduled, non-controlled.
Okay.
We don't touch anything that is in any way regulated, scheduled.
Yeah, it's not a controlled substance, right?
It is not. 2-bromo-LSD is not. But if you wanted to make it previously, you had to start with LSD, which is controlled.
Right.
So what we did was we acquired this patent that allows us to manufacture, and then we spend a lot of time tweaking it. But now we have the only process that allows us to make 2-bromo-LSD completely non-controlled. There's no residuals that are scheduled, and what that means, I learned this phrase from one of our colleagues at the time, that we don't need any laws to be changed.
It's an important one, obviously.
Yeah. So we don't need any laws to be changed regarding the use of this compound or the way this whole psychedelic space needs to overhaul it.
So what's that translate into then?
That translates into a much faster development, and ease of use. From manufacturing, shipping, storing, administering, that kind of thing makes it a lot easier to advance this through its development. And we think that now it's I try to be animated about this. So if you have 100 patients that are suffering from mental disorders, depression, 5 or 10 of them maybe can be treated in clinics.
Okay.
5 or 10 that would agree to be on a hallucinogenic compound, but a majority, whether it's cost or being afraid of hallucinating,
right?
Or
that's a big thing, right?
Yeah,
big concern, I would think.
It is, and so that's the group. We think that if you really want to open the floodgates and have a treatment that can be in the masses, just like antibiotics,
right?
You get your prescription, and then you you treat yourself at home based on certain instructions. We think there's a good chunk of people that would be in that category.
Yeah. So As I learn more, like outside looking in, like, is it important people that are, I guess, trying as this industry adapts and grows, the importance of non-hallucinogenic? Like outside looking in, I would think if I'm going to have a psychedelic experience, and forgive me if I'm wrong because I've never had one, is it important for people to have hallucinogenic like experiences? Because I would think on the outside looking in, if I could go through an experience and not go through hallucinogens, that's a very effective approach, is it not?
Basically, the school of thought has always been that you need that hallucinogenic effect.
Why is that?
And I think because that's just the way it's always been. And there are some really credible people who say without it you don't get the antidepressive effects.
Right.
So what we have done now, we have broken it down to all its different compartments. First of all, does 2-bromo LSD, 2D01488, attached to the same brain receptors as LSD? The answer has come back, yes, we've already press released that. But that's not enough. Does it activate those receptors the same way LSD does?
And does it?
And it does. We just press released last week. We have a whole gamut of data that shows it does. And in fact, in one of the receptors that's not a good receptor because it causes cardiovascular disease that LSD does, ours is an antagonist, means it stops it from causing the bad effects.
Wow.
So that's two.
Right.
The other
that's
part,
fascinating.
yeah, it's been. So the third part is, how do we prove it's not hallucinogenic?
Right.
So we have partnered with University of California, San Diego, Adam Halberstad's lab, and now we have that data. We will release that soon. That shows head-to-head against LSD how 2D01488 is not hallucinogenic. So, next step for us is we have partnered with a group out of Carleton University, the neuro guys, to show us the antidepressive effects of this in animal models. So we are really going, every compartment of this to answer your question.
So what would be timeline trial-wise?
I think early part of next year, we're hoping to have a full IND to the FDA, and then start human trials. So we think that this compound has been in man for years and years, both from anecdotal reports. So there's a lot of safety and reports that are out there. So it's not something new that FDA has never seen.
Right.
So while we are doing toxicology, we are doing every part of the thing that's needed, we think that we're in good shape to.
So could the trials be fast-tracked because it's not a controlled substance?
I don't think you can say that phrase, fast tracks. I think the trials will go a lot faster in a way that you don't need special clinics, you don't need vaults, you don't need to lock up stuff, you don't need clinicians to monitor you. So all of those things that create time for hallucinogens, hallucinogenic compounds, it's not in there. So it would be a faster recruitment, multiple centers, that can make this a lot faster process. And we're excited about that.
Yeah, I think so. I'd like to learn a little bit about you. You got into this industry, you just outlined in the beginning of this interview that we're at 5,000 right now, let's say in this conference, we'll be at 10, 20, 30, 50,000, let's say in 5 years from now. Your background, 25 years plus of big pharma. So translate that. What does that mean? Like, how fast do you see big pharma getting into this industry? With your experience, what's the bonus, or I guess some of the I don't want to say advantages, but some of the things that can come to reality, I should say, based on your experience.
My experience has been that big pharma is a few years away from really jumping into
Still not much time.
Because they're always worried about breaking the laws.
Right.
It's just they can't, get associated with any kind of, federal law prohibition of this. Look at cannabis.
Right.
We still don't have really one of the major pharmas to go in and get involved with that. So that's one, changing laws, how fast it will come, we don't really know. Especially US, federal laws take a long time through Congress and so on. So, and second thing is really the big pharma looks at pharmacoeconomic feasibility.
Which means?
would the insurance payers pay for it? Right now, I mean,
You think they will?
I think not necessarily for clinic visits. Right now, they're all cash pay. You just go to ketamine clinic or one of the. So for big pharma, you need to show them that this is a pharmacoeconomically feasible if you're making, the profits that you're making. But more importantly, in the U.S. especially, it's reimbursed.
Right.
So there's a lot of, we've done that before in our previous work. With other compounds, you survey payers and you do a pharmacoeconomic study where this pricing lands, where will insurance companies pay for it, at what stage you're just out of the market, out of the price range, and they won't.
Right.
So those 2-3 things, the laws in pharmacoeconomic feasibility is really important to big pharma for them to really come in head first and say, here's a big check. We want this.
Where do you think we are in the industry right now? Beautiful day. We're in Miami overlooking the skyline. We're on a 90-foot yacht. Life's good. But
Life's good.
When we look at the overall landscape of this industry right now, what are we doing right? But what are some of the things that we need to change? Is there things coming to mind?
I think this was really a positive thing here, this conference, to get people here and get them. And as we said on the panel, we hope everyone that's here, they realize that they are helping. They're going to be a part of this.
Do you think this industry is very supportive of each other? Because I don't want to give the comparison of cannabis and psychedelics, but a lot of investors, especially in the retail world, like to combine and compare the two.
Yeah.
Cannabis, there was not support amongst each other. It was
I think this is a little bit more supportive. It's more complicated, more complex.
Yes.
In a lot of ways. This is my, again, limited exposure to this because this is new, this kind of gatherings, that there seems to be a little more supportive to this. But again, this needs to be 10 times the size of this.
And you think that day is going to come?
I think that day will come.
Exciting.
It's opening up. People are open to talk about it. People are open to go and take risk and raise capital.
Of course.
Try it in many different ways.
25 years pharma experience. You meet with a lot of, I would assume, influential people this week here at the conference. So walk me through. Who are you meeting with? You don't have to say names, but what's the conversations that you're having?
I've been meeting for a couple of the largest players in the group in this space, and 2 or 3 funds that are interested, investors and so on. And
a lot of institutions that in New York I'm talking to this week as well. They're like, we are so excited about this industry.
Yeah, and H.C. Wainwright is a sponsor, and they've arranged a couple of meetings as well. So it's a mixture of things for me, and for me, it's just basically a coming out.
Yeah, I hear you there. It's exciting just to see everybody face to face, and most importantly, just get out and see people.
Yeah, it's so good.
Isn't
it's
it?
So good.
It's pretty nice being in Miami.
This is slightly better scenery than my office.
I know. Me too. So I could get used to this lifestyle. Well, listen, best of luck for the rest of the week.
Thank you.
BetterLife Pharma trades on what stock exchange?
We trade on the CSE under symbol BETR and on the OTC BETRF.
Last thing I wanted to ask you too, I mentioned at the top, Compass with their endpoints. How much do you think this obviously complements the overall industry and the opportunity potentially it presents for you and your shareholders?
I think it's very positive when the biggest player, it lifts all the boats and the interest and comps get lifted. So I think it's a positive for us.
Yeah.
And again, I tip my hat to all of these guys from Ibogaine, psilocybin, and everything in between. That people are really doing some good research, and this is going to get filtered, but we're going to come with some amazing treatments in the next few years.
Well, congrats.
Yeah, thank you.
Keep up the good work. We have a non-hallucinogenic compound, which is very, very important, very unique. BetterLife Pharma is doing that versus any other company in the space. Ahmad Doroudian, as well as the CES, over 25 years experience with Big Pharma. I always say time and time again, when you're making an investment decision, always look at the leadership team. Ahmad, appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
Thank you very much.